Okay, for this next tutorial, I'm going to walk you through the controls for this, for the overhangs and the window sections over here. And that actually is, so the window shades are controlled by the horizontal projections that you see over here. And then there's also the opportunity to add vertical shades. So if you scroll over here, there's a button there that says add verticals. Well, you control the verticals on this window over here, and I'll explain that in a little bit. So the basics of how this works is you have a horizontal projection and you have a vertical window projection. And what you're doing is you're controlling a ratio between the two of them, and that angle is displayed over here. So as you get wider, it decreases that angle, and then it compares it to this profile angle matrix over here, and determines whether the window is fully shaded or fully unshaded or partially shaded. And what you see in the window over here, I'm going to enlarge it a little bit, is, so we'll look at the south side for a second. So when we don't have any shades, it's all ones, except for where there's no sun on the facade. In that case, it's beige. So now as I add a shade, what it's doing is it's changing those values, and what this is a 0 is a representation of a fully shaded cell. So what this means is for the month of June, it's fully shaded for that 2-foot overhang on a 10-foot window. And then as you go along, it's a percentage of the window unshaded. So it's a shading coefficient for the glass, so to speak. So a 0.12 number over here means 12% of the glass is exposed. 0.80 means 80% of the glass is exposed. So this allows you to see really quickly with the horizontal shades how much of your window is exposed and how much is exposed at what time of the year. And you can do it separately for the west windows as well. And this is a really good illustration over here of why west facade is a lot easier, a lot harder to shade than a south facade. So you see for the same 4-foot overhang, on the south side, for pretty much most of the summer months, you're fully shaded, and then you're, in September, you're reasonably shaded. Whereas on the west side, you're pretty much shaded in the afternoon for the entire year. But on the south side, you actually have some sun in the wintertime. On the west, it's kind of blocking it completely. Well, evenly, I should say. And it's really blocking the high sun angles, which would be mostly reflected in any case. So you can play around with that and see which facades have what kind of shading. You can also, so for instance, if you've got a shading material that isn't fully opaque, like a perforated metal screen, you can put in the transmittance of that shading material. So let's say I put 0.5 over there. It calculates that, so it adds that to the equation. The other thing I'm going to scroll over to this side. I'll put that back to 0. What it's doing as I'm calculating that is it's actually adding the shading effect to this overheating and overcooling. So as I add those in there, it kind of shows me the effect on the thermal performance of my building. Okay. Now it also, so it actually updates these the shading effects as I rotate the building. So now if I rotate it at 45 degrees, I go back over here, and now I can see my south facade is actually a southeast facade, and it's being shaded, in a certain way. It's very different from when it was a true south facade. As you can see, it behaves a little bit more like an east facade now. There's still a little bit more shading in the summer, but so it allows you to compare different scenarios like that. And then I'm going to go quickly to the surface solar azimuth window. And what that does is it actually has a similar effect, but it's on vertical fins now. So I can set the spacing between the vertical fins, and like in the other one, I can actually type this in. So if I want to say it's 4 feet apart and it's a 2-foot shade, I can put that in. I can select which facades I want to apply them to. So I'm just going to apply them to every single facade over here. And you can actually set the angle between the shade and the horizontal. So as I pull this back and forth, it actually, you can see it updates it real time to see, to show you when it's shading. So I'm just going to leave it at perpendicular right now and go back here. I've got this little checkbox that says add verticals. Well, I can check that off, and now this gives me the combination of the horizontals and the verticals on that facade. So it's a really good tool to do a quick shading analysis to figure out how effective your shades are. And then what it does is it actually gives you a shading coefficient matrix that you can then use as an estimate of how much you're shading at what time of the year. So that's kind of how the shading works in Chhaya. Thanks.